We're really pleased to have you join us for something which is quite important, and I'm sure a much needed information for a lot of you. So my name is Hannah Ford. I'm a study hire project manager, and I look after projects based at Oxford Brookes University. And in front of you on screen, we have Kizzy. Kizzy works for the University of Reading and will be talking to us about student finance and how to support your young person through student finance. They'll also be looking at sort of advice and guidance about student finance too, because it can be a bit of a minefield when it comes to it, especially with some of the things that have changed in the recent year. We've also got Karen and Deborah here. They are from Villiers Park, and Villiers Park are going to talk to you about the cost of living and what can be done to support your young person, because we know that people worry about students' life and students living with cost of living, and how they can go through their university time with the cost of things going up at the moment. So Karen is going to be doing a lot of the talking, and we've got Deborah here as well for some information if we have some questions too. So I'm going to pass you to Kizzy. So thank you very much, Kizzy, and if you could just maybe give a bit about yourself, and then you're very welcome to start your session. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks Hannah. Like Hannah said, my name's Kizzy. I work at the University of Reading. My job title, I suppose officially, is Outreach and Access Manager, which just means that I look after programs which are designed to support young people in accessing the university. So I'm going to run you through the Student Finance Plan 5, which is the current plan for those who would be starting in September 2023. So let me pop my screen up to share. There we go. There we go. Now I've actually done it, hopefully. And get myself on the right screen so I know what I'm doing. We're going to talk about what the student finance package is, sort of, how it breaks down, how much money that is, etc. We're going to look at some other sources of funding. I'm going to touch a little bit on the support that we offer at the University of Reading, not just to sell you on Reading, but just because the things that we offer at Reading are also the kinds of things that you'd be able to get from all other universities as well. A little bit about kind of how you apply, what repayments look like, a service that the University of Reading offers called Black Bullion, and then just a little bit of kind of like what needs to be done and when, so that there are no surprises in the process. So the package itself. When you go to university, when your young person goes to university, they need to be able to pay their tuition fees, and that is covered by a tuition fee loan. And they also need to be able to pay their living costs, and those things are covered by the maintenance loan, any extra funding they manage to get, any part-time work that they do while they're studying, any scholarships or bursaries that they manage to secure, and then any other sort of parental or family support. And we're going to talk about what those different loans are and how much they are as we go through this. So tuition fees for 2023-2024 entry. Now we expect these to stay kind of broadly similar as the years go by. They haven't moved too much recently. But if you or your young person are applying beyond 2023-24, these figures might change, and that goes for any figures in this whole presentation. But tuition fees for new full-time undergraduate students are £9,250, and eligible students do not have to pay any of that up front. The tuition fee loan is not dependent on household income, and your tuition fee loan is paid directly to the university. It does have to be repaid, but only when the person who's taken the loan's income goes above £25,000 per year. And we'll talk about what those repayments look like a little bit later. Now, for living costs, all eligible students are entitled to receive a maintenance loan, and the amount of that loan depends on where the young person lives and studies, and also their assessed household income. So for 2023-24, there is a maximum maintenance loan of £9,978 available for students who are studying outside of London and not living with their parents. That maintenance loan gets paid directly into the student's bank account each term, and again is repayable, but only when when your income is over £25,000 a year. So this sort of maximum amounts available, and the higher the household income for the young person, the less that they are eligible for. So if the household income is under £25,000 a year and the young person chooses to remain living at home, the maximum that they're eligible for is £8,400. If they're living elsewhere, so not in the family home, that goes up to £9,978. If they are living in London, that goes up to £13,022 to reflect the fact that the cost of living is higher in London. And if they go to study overseas as part of a UK course, so perhaps a year abroad, that kind of thing, then that goes up to £11,427. There is a student finance calculator. If you just Google search student finance calculator, you will find it. And you can put into that like what your household income is, and it will give you these figures so you can see how they scale. So here's some examples to just kind of really demonstrate what that means. So this student is not living with their parents and they are studying outside of London. And they have a household income of £30,000. So that household income is perhaps parental income. It's not the income of the house that the student goes to live in. It's the house that the family home effectively. This person would be entitled to a maintenance support of £9,265. Second example, this person again is not living with their parents and studying outside of London, but has a household income of £65,000. They would therefore be eligible for £4,651 of maintenance support. So as you can see, as the household income has gone up there, the amount of maintenance support has gone down. This is because there is a sort of expectation, be that right or otherwise, that if you have a higher household income, you can therefore afford to support your child more when they're at university. Example number 3, this person is not living with their parents and is studying outside of London, and they have a household income of 0. There is no money coming into the house. Therefore, they are entitled to the full £9,978. How is this paid? Well, like I mentioned, the tuition fee loan is paid directly to the university. That money doesn't come into the young person's bank account for them to then remember to pay for the university. It's just dealt with directly by Student Finance England to the institution. The maintenance loan is paid directly to the student in 3 instalments. The first instalment when they enroll at university, and then the second and third in the following terms. If they are have managed to get any bursary, scholarships or grants as kind of extra income, then the payment process for that will differ according to what it is that they're getting. So what are those extra bits of funding I talked about? What are bursaries and scholarships and things? So here's some non-repayable support that is available for people going to university. If they have a child or an adult who is dependent upon them, there is a parents' learning allowance, a childcare grant, and also an adult dependence grant. If they are someone who has a disability, a long-term health condition, mental health condition, or specific learning difficulty, there is further support available for that. There is also support if you study overseas as part of a UK course or go on a clinical placement. And there are bursaries for certain professions, such as teacher training subjects, some NHS courses, and some social work courses. Not all NHS courses, not all teacher training subjects. So it's worth doing a little bit of research here. And also if you're a young person who's leaving local authority care, there is additional support available as well. Scholarships and bursaries are granted on a sort of variety of different criteria and by different organisations and different bodies. They can be tied to academic achievement, they can be tied to household income, they can be subject specific, and they can also, there are some that are aligned to certain professions as well. Most universities offer different awards and schemes, and these can be either money off accommodation, a reduction in tuition fees, or cash awards, so just a repayment into your bank account, or a combination of these. So as some examples, here at the University of Reading, if you are a young person in a house with a household income of less than £27,000 as assessed by Student Finance, then you are eligible to receive a bursary of £1,100, which you can choose to take either as cash, so we'll just pay it into your bank account, or as a tuition fee reduction. If you then remain eligible, so your household income stays below that threshold, you receive the same amount in years 2 and 3, and if you're on a 4-year programme, in year 4. You don't have to apply for that one at Reading as long as you've provided that consent to share, which comes up in your student finance application. Other ones that we have at the University of Reading, if you are care experienced or estranged, we offer you up to £1,000 a year. We also offer a work and study placement bursary for students who are doing placements or year abroads, and that's between £200 to £1,000 to kind of travel and additional accommodation costs. And then we also have some awards that have been given sort of by donors. So we have the Julia Borman Award, which is up to £1,000, and the Ewan Page Prize, which gives £130 in book vouchers so that you can buy textbooks and things. For these, at Reading, we don't ask people to apply, but it may be that we ask for evidence upon offering the bursary. Another way that young people fund their kind of maintenance and living while they're at university is through part-time work. Most universities will have an equivalent of our campus jobs that sort of help students find jobs. At Reading, we say that if a job on campus can be done by a student, it should be done by a student. And so most of our catering facilities, bars and dining, those kinds of things are all kind of student employees. Our campus jobs kind of helps find the balance for students between work and study, making sure that they don't work too many hours per week. But also gives them opportunities to kind of represent the university, perhaps as student ambassadors or helping out on open days, and also can help students with summer and holiday jobs, finding internships, those kinds of things. So how do you apply for all of this? Well, applications usually open in around April, and the deadline is then the end of May. It's really important that your young person, or you, whoever is applying for the finance, the person who's going to be studying, has these things ready before they fill out their application. So passport details, if they've got one, or their birth certificate or other identity and residency documents, their national insurance number, their bank account details, and their university and course details. Now, it's possible, because of how early the student finance deadline is, that they might not have a confirmed place yet, because obviously their offer might be conditional on their exam grades. But you need to apply with kind of your preferred choice, where they hope they're going to be going, because you can always change it. It's better to apply and then change where you go than not apply. It takes around 30 minutes for the bit that the student needs to do themselves. After that, once the student has applied for student finance, an email is then sent to the supporting sort of parent or adults with a link to create an online account and for you to provide information about your income from the previous tax year. So if you've got a young person starting university in September 2023, you will need to provide information about your income for the 2021 to 22 tax year, so the previous year. If, however, you know that your income for this year will be at least 15% less than it was in the previous year, you can give income details for the current year instead. You, as the supporting parent, will need to provide national insurance numbers, details of your household's taxable income, details of your personal taxable income, and details of any other child dependents. This is then checked and kind of cross-matched against information held by HMRC. And you will also need to provide marital status, and that's verified as well. Every year, thousands of students apply late for their student finance, and that means they're then stuck at the start of the year without ways to pay for their course or for their accommodation. It takes at least 6 weeks to process a student finance application. So really encourage the young people who are studying to apply for their student finance early so that they have got that money on time. As I said, they do not need a confirmed place. Apply with the place that they're hoping to get into, and you can always change that bit later. That's an easy change for student finance to do, and that does not take 6 weeks, but doing the whole process does. It's really important to try and get the information that you supply right the first time. And don't forget to read and understand the loan terms and conditions. Now, repayments, the bit that everybody gets a little bit scared about. Repayments start the April after graduating or leaving university. and only start when the learner's income is over £25,000 a year. And they repay 9% of their income over £25,000 a year. Deductions then are made from your student's pay through the tax system. And if at any point the student's income falls to £25,000 or below, then repayments will stop. And any outstanding balance is written off 40 years after entering repayment. So this is an example of what that actually looks like. So somebody who earns £25,000, there is no additional over 25,000 from which that 9% is deducted. So they would make no payments. If their annual salary goes up to £30,000, there is £5,000 above that 25,000 cutoff. So they take 9% of that, which works out at a monthly repayment of approximately £37.50. Those repayments obviously go up as your salary goes up. So for an in-between example there on the bottom, 28,000, that leaves 3,000 above the threshold, so 9% is deducted from that, giving an approximate monthly repayment of £22.50. So what do you and your young person need to think about next? We have a website called Black Bullion. The link is moneyreadyforuni.com. It's an excellent resource for going and thinking about how to budget and how to get yourself kind of financially fit and ready. I'd recommend that young people have a look at that. Apply for student finance as early as possible. They do have a mailing list on their website that will notify you when applications open. Prepare your information and documentation in advance so that you're ready to submit. Check with the university and the department that you're hoping to study with to see if they have any bursaries or scholarships. We do have some help and advice on managing money, costs and budgets on the University of Reading website, and I imagine that all other universities do because we know how that it's important. And if students haven't applied for their finance in time, their student finance may not be available on day one of their course. So do make sure that you've got some money to cover yourself for those first, few weeks, just in case anything goes wrong. So that was a lot of information in possibly not a lot of time. So let's have a quick recap. No matter what, it's still the most important thing that you make the right university and course choice. It's got to be the right course for you. Tuition fee loans are available to all eligible students and will cover 100% of tuition. Future repayments are linked to your income, not to what is owed. I'd really encourage you to research all finance available, especially bursaries and scholarships. I've talked about a few that we have at Reading, but there are others from other institutions, and there are also some that aren't tied to specific universities. I know Santander, the bank, were offering some recently, so do a little bit of Googling and have a look around for that. Apply online and on time. You do not have to wait until your place is confirmed after A-level results day. And check that your details are correct before you submit your application. If you put in the incorrect information, it then slows down the process. So take the time to get it right before you submit your application. Here are a few things that might be useful to you. Here's the government gov.uk website for student finance, so gov.uk/student finance. That will show you all of the eligibility criteria, such as, residency status and things like that. That's the student finance calculator that I mentioned. Again, you can just Google student finance calculator, but it is gov.uk/student-finance-calculator. That allows you to put in your household income and kind of get a sense of how much money you would get. Student Finance England, if you're a student resident in England, have various bits of social media. They're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're also on YouTube. Go and watch their explainer videos, ask them questions if you need it. Here's their big campaign page, and like I said, it shows you applications are expected to open from April, and that's just all of those links there. I'm sure I can share these with Hannah, so she can share them around if helpful. But thank you all very much. That's kind of the end of my formal presentation-y bit, and I'm really happy to take any questions if anyone's got any. And I'll work out how to stop sharing in just a second.
Thank you, Kizzy, for that presentation. We have had one question. If the child is in a split family with joint time spent in both households, which parent applies, or does it not matter?
Oh, good question. I'm assuming an equal split of time. If it wasn't equal, I'd say in the house where the child is sort of most resident. If it's an equal split, I don't actually know what the rules are from student finance. The part of me that wants to play the system says the parent that has the lowest income, because then they'll be eligible for more money. But I would double check that with Student Finance England themselves, just to make sure that we're not accidentally committing any fraud.
Brilliant. We can also take that question, and I can send it out to everybody, the answer of that one as well. Like Kizzy said, we just want to make sure we're giving out the relevant information. Yeah. But for any questions we're not too sure about, I can send those out later. Thank you for that question. It was a good question as well.
Very good. Kizzy, thanks. I'll have a little Google as well when Karen's presenting, just in case.
Perfect.
I can find the answer before the end.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that session, Kizzy. That was great. And like I said earlier, that student finance is definitely something that can be a sort of whirlwind of information. So the information you gave is great, but also worth noting that everyone here today is very different in their circumstances as well. So it's just worth having research or asking the question, and Study Hire is here for you if you have any questions like that too. So thanks again, Kizzy, and we're going to move over to Karen now from Villiers Park, who's going to give a little bit of talk about students and the cost of living crisis. So Karen, it's over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Hannah, and thank you, Kizzy. Welcome, I'm Karen from Villiers Park. We're a charity who work with students across the UK, and we're going to have a little look at what students can do to deal with the cost of living crisis. We will do if Karen's screen will move. Right, excuse me, I'm just going to close my sharing and try again.
Karen, I think maybe it might not move in the large present screen, perhaps.
Right, I'll come out. Okay.
It might just be best to present it like that, maybe.
Okay, we usually do it in the other one, but perhaps it's because we're not on our normal Zoom then. So today we're going to look at how far a student loan will go, what you can do to increase a student's income, and what we can do to decrease a student's outgoings. So as Kizzy's explained in great detail, because there's lots of changes to the student loan, your course fees will go directly to your university or other higher education provider. You don't see that at all. Your maintenance loan will be paid into your bank account at the start of each term over the 3 terms. This will only happen once you register with the university in year 1, and it's obviously a priority to get that registration in, because that will kickstart everything for you. As Kizzy said, sometimes that's delayed if you've changed university, gone through clearing, and do bear in mind you will probably need to purchase items before you start university, and you may need to pay a room deposit as well. So what might you need to spend money on as a student? The major outgoing will be your rent. We're going to have a look at that. You'll also have utility bills, food and other shopping. You'll have your travel costs. You might have some insurance to pay for, health costs and leisure activities. And we're just going to have a little look at those and just see what sort of things you might not be aware of. As I said, rent's going to be the major item of expenditure for students. So when you're looking at this, you know, each university will have their own halls of residence, which most students will go into in the first year unless they're living at home or with family who live in the area. So when you're looking at those figures, do have a look to see whether bills are included. Are there any meals included? Some universities have like a voucher system, so you can book as many as you want. You can take the meals in different places. Some universities, you are limited to the university hall, and it's less flexible. So you really do have to do your research up at the start before you start university. Always have a look to see if you need to pay full rent during the holidays. Your student loan in theory covers you for about 40 weeks. of the year, your landlord might expect you to pay for 52. Have a think about how much deposit you need to pay. My eldest is paying about 5 weeks rent as a deposit, and that does vary from place to place. Also make sure that you're not liable to cover the rent if other students drop out. You might be in a shared house of 5. If 1 or 2 of those other students drop out, that's going to make a massive difference to your rent. So do beware. We've done a bit of a survey with some of our students who are current first years across different universities in the UK at the moment. You might be surprised to see on there that the one that we had that was the cheapest was St John's College at the University of Oxford. To be fair though, that doesn't include food, but that is quite a big difference compared to the other universities that we had the feedback from. You will pay extra if you have an ensuite room rather than share a bathroom. And as I said, the catering option is more expensive than self-catered. The good news though is that you will have those shared areas cleaned for you. And I know that's probably quite a relief to most parents that their students will be having a nice clean kitchen, at least for the first year when they're in halls. Right, so once you've done your first year, unless you are a few limited universities that have enough accommodation for everybody for every year, you will be looking for a shared house. Normally this time of year in year 1, you will be getting together with some friends, whether from your existing accommodation or the university, and you will be going around and looking at a variety of shared houses. Again, we've asked students, our future leaders, to give us some details on how much they're going to be paying for next year. And there's quite an interesting split as to how different prices are. These are obviously just based on individual details. There will be greater differences in the area, but Bristol definitely came out as the highest. We had a few students down there. And actually some of the rents that I've had since I made the slide are even higher than that. The interesting difference there though is when you see how much it is between Cardiff and Bristol. So if a student's down in Cardiff and they're lucky enough to find that house at £330 a month, then they are saving over £2,000 on a student who's gone to Cardiff. And if they're there on a 4-year course, potentially that's a saving of £6,000 to £7,000 over their time at university. Right, utility bills. You will have to pay gas, electricity, broadband, and no doubt have a mobile phone contract as a student. The good news is there is no council tax liability if you are a full-time student. Shopping, you will have to think about food and drink if you're not in a catered option. Toiletries, cleaning products, books and study materials are things that all students tend to have to purchase. You might have to travel. If you're on a campus, you may not have to travel very far, but it might be in an evening, you want to go out if you've got a job, or if you want to pop home at the weekend. I've put plane ticket on there. One of my students from Swindon has travelled to Edinburgh to university, and the difference between the plane ticket and the train fare was huge. So it might not sound normal for a student, but it does make a big difference. And then taxi after a night out as well. Insurance, this is very important. Lots of students sadly are victims of people who will prey on them, especially when they turn up at a hall of residence with a brand new laptop for starting university. Do make sure you've got that insurance available on your contents. It might be that you're covered by your family's home insurance, so do check that out as well. But as I say, it's one of those things, these things are important for us. And do think about whether insurance is the thing that you need. Health, you will normally start paying for prescription charges from your 19th birthday, so do bear that in mind. If you are a student who's on lots of medication, then there are such things as prepayment certificates, which would save you a lot of money. You will then have to as well pay for dental checks and eye tests as well. Right, we're hoping you're going to have lots of leisure time and enjoy your time as a student. So you might want to be budgeting for things like sports memberships, societies, your streaming subscription, and obviously going out as well. All things to bear in mind. So how much might you need to budget? So these are just some examples based on my own son. So you're looking at about £800 a month, which, roughly looking at the figures from Kizzy, would be what you would expect to be able to afford if you were on the full student loan. So what can we do to help with that as prices are going up? So what you might want to do is to increase your income. As I said, you've got things to buy as you start university, so you might want to be thinking about doing some part-time work before you start university. Part of that work is applying for things like bursaries and scholarships that Kizzy's spoken about. There are lots of them out there, and I will share a link in a minute for a website that looks at scholarships across the UK. Now, charity grants, we have got the Wiltshire Community Fund in our local area, and at least one of my students from last year is accessing the community fund, and they've got money that's theirs to keep. It's not a loan, and that I'm sure will apply across lots of other areas as well. It's doing a bit of research. You know, Google's a wonderful thing. There are other options available, but yes, definitely have a look and see if you are eligible for that. The disabled student allowance does differ from the bursaries, the scholarships and the charity grants, where you receive a lump sum of money into a bank account and you can spend it as you see fit. For a disabled student allowance, you are applying for funding for specific support or specific items to help you with your studies. So it is funding that is earmarked, and it must be used for the things that you've applied for. But it will help you stop spending some of your student loan on those things that you are eligible for. So student jobs, as I said earlier, you might want to apply for a student job for as you finish your A-levels. You will have that longer summer holiday. There are lots of student jobs out there. As Kizzy said, at university, there are lots of jobs on campuses, which is fantastic, but you don't have to just do that. You could apply for jobs in hospitality. Many students, myself included, will have worked behind the bar, in a cafe, in a restaurant, might have been a cleaner. I know that's what one of our neighbours' daughters does. You may be running an ironing service from home. You might work in customer service, whether that's in a shop, it could be food shop, clothing shop. You get the discounts then, and I know some of my students are very impressed with that because that saves them extra money as well. But you might also work in something like a call centre, and I know we've had a number of students who've done that. They've worked on a Friday night or weekends when people who aren't students are less likely to want to do that, and have earned some good money doing that. Students applying for university are bright, so often will find themselves working for tutoring companies. There are a variety of those around, or it might be that they are tutoring for friends and family, and it's a good way of earning money. There are lots of other jobs as well now that you can do online. You might be a web designer, you might be very creative, you might be selling crafty things. We are seeing a lot of students who have got some very good ideas on how to be self-employed as a student and can increase their income. Now, sports is on there. Some of my students at the moment are big football fans, and they work at their local football club on match day. They work as a steward, they earn money, they get to see the match, and it's a win-win for them as well. So there's lots of different ideas out there for students to raise their income levels. Another thing that we've got as well is selling unwanted items. Now, I know during lockdown, we had some very enterprising young people who were buying things from charity shops, making them look good and selling them all on eBay at quite a high profit. So this is one way that I know some students have raised student income through various apps. Another way, a bit slower and probably not as quick to do, but doesn't involve the post office, is completing surveys for money or gift vouchers. There's a lot of companies out there desperate to know what entices people to buy things, and they will offer money for that information. So some of the websites that you might find useful, job hunting, we've got things like indeed.co.uk, we've got Student Job, E4S. The scholarship one that I mentioned earlier is the scholarshiphub.org.uk. That's a new one to me recently, but they've got lots of information on there about the different scholarships available across the UK. As I mentioned, the Wiltshire Community Foundation, there will be lots of other ones across the country. And the survey sites, there's a variety of them, but u.gov.co.uk and Ipsos are two of the big ones. Right, and then finally, out of the three options that we're looking at tonight, is things about how to reduce those outgoings. So as we mentioned earlier, the rental costs vary depending on which universities you go to. As I said, Bristol is very high compared to a lot of other universities at the moment. So what can you do in that second year when you're looking at a house and thinking about how you're going to keep those outgoings down? So is it near the university? Are you paying extra to live very close to the university? Can you walk or cycle? Or do you need to catch a bus? So you might save some money living further away, but if you've got to spend a lot of money on bus fares, then it might not balance out. If you've taken a part-time job, is your location of your new home going to be near the part-time job, or are you going to need to change the job that you're doing? Food shopping, is there a decent supermarket near you, a decent sized one? There's been a lot in the press recently about the difference between a small Sainsbury's and a big Sainsbury's in price. I did a little bit of research. You're looking about 20-30p per item that you're buying difference. So that can make a huge difference on your outgoings. When you're looking at a house, a lot of student houses are older and may not have very modern appliances and things like that in there. So it is looking to see how energy efficient they are. If you've got an electric shower that's old, it might cost a lot to heat the water. I've got on their garden. Is there a garden where you can dry your washing? That will make a huge difference to a household for students. So it's just little things like that. So when you're starting to look for this house that you're going to share with friends in years 2 and 3, start thinking about what's important to you and can any of that help you with those outgoings. Right, we've got some ideas here from current students who've flooded my mailbox with lots of information. So look for events at university offering free food and drinks. Sign up for student discount schemes. There's so many different ones out there. Nowadays, it's all on apps on your phone. Compared to when I was at uni, it was a plastic card. Always shop around for the best deals, especially things like your insurance, utility bills, that can make a huge difference. So visit those local charity shops, secondhand bookshops and markets. Often student books are very expensive, the textbooks, and it's finding ways of buying them without spending quite so much money. And I know there will be quite a good thriving secondhand market in books. So can you save money with a travel card? If you're going to university and you've got to be in 5 days a week, you might find that a weekly bus pass is the best thing for you. Don't rush and buy it the day you get there though. Do wait and see until you've got your timetables through and see how, you know, are you actually going to get the value for money out of that? I know my eldest, each year he's had at least one day he's not needed to go in. So just weigh it up when you know what your days look like. You might need a season ticket if you're living at home or living further away from an area and commuting in on the train. And that season ticket might help. You might want to join together with friends to save money on shopping and cooking. One of the things with that is online shopping. So I mentioned earlier, if you've only got a little corner shop, it might be very expensive. You might want to get together with the other people in the house and do a weekly shop for the bigger stuff together. You might spend £2 between you on a delivery charge. But if you split that up and think about the amount of money you're saving from getting the items from a cheaper shop, then you probably get that back and a lot besides. So a lot of the students mentioned looking for a student bank account. Various free gifts come on those, things like free rail cards, student rail cards, things like that. And most of them will have an emergency overdraft as well. Now, I used to work in banking. They are desperate for students to sign up because they believe that you will stay with them for the rest of your life once you join them as a student. That's what that free overdraft is there for, to keep you with them. So do play the game very carefully, and do bear in mind that as you leave university, you could swap to a different account. So don't let that stop you in the future. Another thing that lots of students have recommended is learning to cook some cheap and simple recipes. Yes, you might have desires to cook really fancy food, but actually when you come back from a busy day at uni, you might just want to have something that cooks in 10-15 minutes. So if you can get yourself together a list of simple recipes that are cheap to do, then you will find it a lot easier. I've been recommended by students the Olio app and the Too Good To Go app. If you've not come across these yet, you can get free food or nearly free food. Lots of different things to look at on those. And Olio, you can also get other free items as well. So if you suddenly decide that your kettle's died, your toaster's died, you might be able to get one free from a neighbour. Look for yellow sticker items when food shopping. Those are the things that are reduced and need eating today. They might go in the freezer. Mentioned earlier, shop at a larger supermarket, but do stick to your list and take a packed lunch with you whenever you go to uni. Excuse me. You might want to switch to own brand food. I've just given a couple of examples on there. They might not go together, but just so you can see, just by swapping the two items there, you've saved over £2. And that's how easy it is to make some savings on your outgoings. All right, useful websites. Money Saving Expert is run by Martin Lewis, who I'm sure you've probably seen on the TV. He has lots of useful hints and tips. He also has a section on there for students, all about student finance. He's very passionate, having been a student himself. We've got savethestudent.org, which.co.uk, the Student Room. All of them have got advice on how to reduce outgoings, how to shop around for best deals. And then on there, BBC Good Food, cheap student meals. I know every year lots of shops are selling student cookbooks, but actually you can just get the information online for free. So there's lots of ways there to save money. Right, I'm afraid that's been a very whistle-stop tour. Does anybody have any questions? And I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Karen, for that talk. If anyone's got any questions, you're very welcome to pop them in, but also equally, like I said, you're welcome to send them to me and we can pass them on to Karen as well. So we can ask them again and send that email out also. It looks like we've got no questions, so I'm just going to say thank you to all the presenters today and being here for that useful information, because I know that finance is a concern for a lot of people, and it can be a worry, especially with everything that's going on with the cost of living crisis too. So if you do have any other questions that pop up, please do let me know. But thank you very much for your time today and giving us part of your evening. It's much appreciated. Next week's session is on apprenticeships. So we have Ask Apprenticeships coming to talk about apprenticeships, as well as Activate Learning, who'll be talking about colleges and application through colleges also, if that's of interest to your young person too. If there's no other questions, just to say thank you very much. And when you close down, there'll be a few questions of feedback that we greatly appreciate if you wouldn't mind filling in. But other than that, thank you very much. And thank you, Kizzy, Karen, and Deborah as well for joining us. And we're on the end of an email if you have any questions.